So in this lesson, I want to talk a little bit more about development. And we talked a little bit about development in one of the other videos where we kind of broke down the kind of goals for development that we can have when we're writing our music. But I also kind of want to delve a little bit deeper into just the things that we can do to develop our ideas at the piano. I think I kind of have three main ways to, three kind of levels of development that we can use when we're developing our ideas here at the piano. I think the first probably simplest type would be repetition, with the second being probably variation, and then the third being mutation. And I'll break those down here right now. So repetition, the first type, is I think exactly what it sounds like. It's finding ways to pretty much just repeat the idea, but just with just in some different way, but basically being the exact same idea. One of the main ways to just repeat, just say if our idea was this, one way to repeat that is to just transpose it, to put it in a different key. So we might instead put it in E major or E flat major. See, it's still the same intervals, still the same everything, it's just in a different key. So it's basically still the exact same thing. Or even simpler, another way we can repeat an idea but just make it sound a little different, but it's still basically be the exact same, is just to change octaves. So go. Still the exact same idea, but it has a little bit different connotation or different sound to it. And then I would say probably the third maybe type of repetition that we can use to develop our ideas is something that I can't really demonstrate here on the piano, but it's more orchestrally minded, where we can change what instrument is playing the thing, the idea, and a different instrument will give it a different timbre, but note-wise it's still the same notes. So now for kind of the second difficulty of development, the second level of development, variation. These are things that will change the idea a little bit, but it's still very recognizable and still has its identity. And probably one of the coolest things we can do is to change modes for the idea. And very simply, if we have this, if we're going to put it in a C minor mode, we just change the E to an E flat, just using the notes of the minor scale, or Lydian, where we change the F to an F sharp to get that sharp 4. Those are very simple things that you can do just by changing the mode and switching out, which notes are different between mode to mode. You can really get some unique and interesting variations, but it'll still sound like the same idea. Just to kind of even elaborate on this further, we're going to just put, an accompaniment in the left hand. If we're to put this in different modes and put the accompaniment in different modes and kind of bring out what moods those evoke as well. So we put it in the minor mode. Or let's say we put it in the minor mode and we change the harmony under it. That's another way that we can add some variations, change the harmony under the idea, or sometimes the idea is the harmony itself. But in this case, we start with C minor, then maybe move to a chromatic mediant. We go to our A flat minor chromatic mediant, which is down a major third and going from C minor to A flat minor. Something like that. That has a pretty neat sound, right? Then we can, like we just did, we can put it in the Lydian mode and really bring out the character of that. Or maybe it's a compound time. And then kind of what I just did there, we might find when you just try different things out, sometimes that spurs other ideas, that just kind of flow naturally, and that really gets back to, just the music really coming from inside of you. If you're a composer or a music producer who uses the piano to shape your musical ideas, whether you're writing for orchestra, producing hip-hop, rock, EDM, or anything in between, the Piano Composer is for you. This step-by-step course shows you how to go beyond simple blocked chords and turn your ideas into expressive, fully developed piano pieces with variation, climaxes, beautiful transitions, build-ups, and so much more. For further information, be sure to check out the link down in the description. And if you found this helpful, please leave us a like and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. But, we can also combine some of the stuff from the repetition category and this category too. They don't have to be completely separate from each other. So we can change the octave of this idea and then also change the mode or the key that it's played in. So maybe we bring it way up here, then we change, maybe it's Lydian but kind of more E minor type thing. So it's using kind of different scale. Maybe change the accompaniment under it a little bit. Just kind of these thirds that kind of move around the scale. And then kind of continue on from there. And it's just, the possibilities really here are endless. I could sit here all day and just try different things out, but for the sake of time, I'll talk about some other things that we can do within variation. So another thing that we can do within variation is intervallic change. This is kind of like changing modes, but more at a more granular level. So if we have this, and what if we just say the intervals are a little bit wider? Maybe we go up a sixth instead, or a seventh, or all the intervals are wider. So the more you kind of change it, the more it starts to sound like something a little bit different, but I think you kind of get the idea. Just changing intervals, interval by interval, can also, just kind of create some unique things. Then you can also see how those sound and then just, really springboard off of that. And then probably the last thing I would say about variation, other thing that we can do are expansions and interjections. And I kind of already mentioned this when I kind of just improvised something after the idea that we have when I was doing the Lydian demonstration. That would be an expansion where we're kind of tacking stuff onto the end of the idea. And I think that's a really great way if you're really struggling to kind of figure out kind of what do I do next? Like, it doesn't have to be a small motif. It can be a full 16 bar theme and you're not really sure where to go next. Just, add an expansion or add an interjection. Do something different in the middle or the beginning or the end of that theme or motif or section of music that just kind of breaks it up a little bit, makes it feel fresh, feel new. And, we do that a little bit in both of our compositions. And I think it's a really effective tool. And it also can kind of sometimes result in some new musical ideas that you can even use at other points in the music. This, after this, that. We can just then use some repetition for that. And then maybe after some repetition, then do more variation, put in different, add another expansion, and then you just, like I said, the possibilities really are just so endless, right? Where you can string all these things together, and that is how composers create really compelling, fluid, and also nuanced and intricate pieces. And it's such a great way of thinking about development, I think. And then probably kind of the last mode of development is something more drastic, and that's mutation, where you're kind of changing the idea, you're changing actually the more fundamental parts of its DNA to be something actually kind of completely different. And so one thing you might do is actually just change the contour. So if we have, maybe it goes down for that first interval instead. Or where it's literally just an inversion. But we can even go more drastic than that too. Perhaps it's, we're really kind of just flipping some of these intervals around and really changing the contour. You can almost kind of hear, because it's the same rhythm, you can almost kind of hear the same idea, but it's starting to get pretty different. And that brings me to another thing that you can do is just keep the contour, but change the rhythm, or do both, you know. But for this demonstration, change the rhythm. I added another note, but repeat notes or just you know, I think that still maybe almost falls more into the category of variation, but it is something where you're still kind of changing some of the really identifiable DNA elements of you know, you can also, again, combine this with the other things that we talked about, you know, add an interjection along with changing the rhythm as well. All these things just, they're all kind of things you can just always implicitly do, but just kind of knowing that they're out there and kind of understanding just, or even kind of just having a list, you know, sometimes is just really helpful to be able to develop your compositions naturally and in a very engaging way. And then kind of the last thing I think I might say about mutation is something I kind of do sometimes, and that's to just create a sound-alike motif, kind of like a doppelganger. And I think that's more just kind of a way of combining everything that we've talked about in this lesson. So far to create a look-alike motif for that motif. Maybe we're combining everything. We're changing rhythm, we're changing harmony, changing mode, just kind of doing everything, but it's, I don't know, something like, it sounds entirely different, right? The contour is kind of still there, so maybe we even change that. I don't think that sounds anything like, I think it sounds very different, but I think that's also kind of another way of generating new ideas off of ones that you already have, kind of for free. And that kind of brings us to another lesson that we're about to talk about, and that is a method that was introduced to me called the family tree method, which is basically just a method of creating endless variations, basically using all the things that we just talked about off of existing musical ideas that you already have to just give yourself so many options when you're writing music. So I'll see you in that lesson.